Between 1892 and 1954, Ellis Island served as the United States' largest immigration station, processing up to 12 million people. It's estimated that nearly 40% of Americans today can trace at least one ancestor back to this small island in New York Harbor. For millions, Ellis Island was the gateway to a new life, a final stop after weeks at sea and years of hope. Families arrived carrying little more than their belongings, their traditions, and their determination to start over. They came from every corner of the world, drawn by the promise of work, freedom, and a chance to build something lasting. Here, their names were recorded, their health inspected, and their dreams tested. Some passed through within hours. Others waited days or even weeks, unsure if they'd be allowed to stay. Yet for those who did, this island marked the beginning of everything that followed, the moment when America stopped being an idea and became a place they could finally call home. Welcome to Animata Historia, breathing life into historic photographs from around the world to remind us of how we used to live, where we came from, and what made us who we are today. In this episode, we are reanimating rare portraits of the first Ellis Island immigrants to arrive in New York City. The very first person to pass through Ellis Island was a 15-year-old girl named Annie Moore. She had sailed across the Atlantic from County Cork, Ireland, to reunite with her parents in New York. When she stepped onto the island on New Year's Day, 1892, Annie became the first name written in the Ellis Island ledger. To mark the moment, an immigration official handed her a $10 gold piece, a small fortune, and a welcome to her new life. Annie's story became a symbol of hope for millions who followed. The photos you're about to see were taken between 1906 and 1914 by Augustus Sherman, an amateur photographer and Ellis Island employee who captured the faces and stories of those arriving in search of a new life. Untrained but remarkably talented, Sherman documented the incredible diversity of immigrants stepping onto American soil at the dawn of the 20th century. Originally published in National Geographic in 1907, today we can see them colorized and brought back to life using AI technology, offering a vivid window into a defining chapter of American history. When Ellis Island first opened its doors in 1892, the United States was exploding with growth. Railroads, factories, and cities were multiplying faster than the country could fill them. America needed workers, it needed families, it needed people willing to build a nation from the ground up. At the same time, across the Atlantic, millions were searching for a way out. Europe was in turmoil. In Ireland, famine and economic collapse had torn communities apart. In Italy and Eastern Europe, poverty, overpopulation, and political unrest made daily life a struggle. Jews faced violent persecution in the Russian Empire. In the Balkans, wars and shifting borders left families displaced. For many, there was no future to stay for, only one to imagine somewhere else. That somewhere was America. The promise wasn't guaranteed, but it was alive. Stories spread across villages and cities, of land to farm, of work to be found, of a country that, in principle at least, didn't care where you came from. Posters, letters, and word of mouth turned the idea of America into something close to myth. When ships reached New York Harbor, Ellis Island stood as the gateway. Immigrants disembarked with everything they owned, sometimes in a trunk, sometimes just a small bundle. Inside the processing halls, doctors checked for illness. Inspectors asked questions through translators. For some, it was a few hours of uncertainty. For others, days. But when they finally heard the words, "You may go," they stepped onto American soil with the possibility of a new beginning. Between 1892 and 1954, over 12 million people passed through Ellis Island. They came from over 50 nations: Italians, Poles, Greeks, Russians, Hungarians, Germans, Syrians, Chinese, and more. The United States became a mosaic, built from stories told in hundreds of accents. The impact was profound. Immigrants filled the factories that made steel and textiles. They built railroads and bridges, carved tunnels and mined coal. They opened bakeries, barbershops, and markets that brought the flavors and sounds of old worlds into new neighborhoods. Cities like New York, Chicago, and Boston swelled with life, chaotic, crowded, but alive with possibility. Of course, there was tension too. Waves of newcomers met resistance, prejudice, suspicion, and laws designed to slow their arrival. Yet even as the country debated who belonged, it relied on their labor, their innovation, and their determination. A situation that has barely changed over a century later. For a country founded on the promise of shared hope and possibility, some people are quick to forget that all but the indigenous nations who resided on the land for thousands of years were foreigners on American shores. And like so many countries around the world, it has become a multicultural society born out of the human desire to live a better life. Over generations, the children and grandchildren of Ellis Island immigrants became the backbone of modern America. They fought in wars, held office, built companies, and reshaped culture. They became teachers, inventors, musicians, and mayors. Their influence reached every corner of the country, and it still does. As mentioned in the introduction, remarkably, it's estimated that nearly 40% of Americans today can trace at least one ancestor back to Ellis Island. That's not just genealogy, it's identity. The idea that America could renew itself again and again through the courage of those willing to start over. As a photographer working at Ellis Island, Augustus Sherman wasn't concerned with why these people were here. He was more interested in where these people came from. This was a unique opportunity to document these new and fascinating cultures, with an emphasis on the traditional attire that they wore. This girl hails from the Germanic-speaking region of Alsace, now in modern-day France. The large bow, known as a Schlupfkap, was worn by single women and signified the wearer's religion. In this photograph, the priest wears an onteri, an ankle-length cassock worn by all clergymen. The stiff cylindrical hat is called a kalimavkion and is worn during services. This example of Ruthenian traditional dress consisted of a shirt and underskirt made from linen, which was embroidered with traditional floral-based patterns. The sleeveless jacket is constructed from panels of sheepskin. This traditional dress was most likely homespun and consisted of a long, wide dress to cover the ankles. Colors and materials were usually regional. Shawls and veils were also a common feature, and an apron decorated with floral brocades was used for special occasions such as weddings. Gakti is the traditional costume of the Sami people who inhabit the Arctic regions spanning from northern Norway to the Kola Peninsula in Russia. It signified whether or not one was single or married, but also served as a working dress when herding reindeer. In rural Norway, clothes were often made at home and typically made from wool, though silk or other imported material was available. The decoration was elaborate or sparse, depending on the region, or whether or not the dress was considered Sunday best. This Romanian man is wearing a traditional shepherd's cloak known as a sarika, made from 3 or 4 sheepskins sewn together. This particular example, given the amount of ornamentation, was likely not used for practical purposes. The elaborate tartan headpiece worn by this Guadalupean woman can be traced back to the Middle Ages, where the eastern Indian city of Madras was famed for its cotton making. Like many of the traditional costumes from all over the world, the headpiece decoration in many cases was indicative of the married status of the wearer. The large bonnet, which is arguably one of the most recognizable aspects of Dutch traditional dress, was usually made of white cotton or lace and sometimes had flaps or wings. The topi is worn all over the Indian subcontinent with many regional variations and has cultural significance, and is especially popular in Muslim communities, where it is known as a taqiyya. His coat, embroidered with fleur-de-lis, speaks of pride and discipline. His gaze is unwavering, the kind of stare forged by long winters and quiet work. He does not smile, but his presence tells a story of endurance, of dignity, of ordinary people who shaped history without ever meaning to. This Bavarian miner, photographed in 1910, shows a quiet strength, facing the unknown with hope disguised as composure. His attire, embroidered belt, silver buttons, and feathered hat, reflects centuries of mountain tradition, pride in craftsmanship, in community, in the rhythm of land and labor. The Cossacks were famed soldiers that, by the time of this photograph, had evolved into a military class that served as border guards or police. A Cossack soldier was required to provide his own arms, horses, and uniform at his own expense. Men like this often played at weddings, markets, and fields, their music binding village life together. But by the early 1900s, many left that life behind. Poverty, land shortages, and political unrest pushed them westward toward America. This Algerian man wears the traditional burnous and turban, symbols of dignity and endurance in the harsh desert and under colonial rule. At this time, Algeria was under French control. Many men like him left North Africa seeking freedom, work, or simply escape from the tightening grip of empire. Men like this came to America not to flee, but to begin again. They brought with them the same resolve that once defended their mountains, now turned toward building a new life in a freer world. It is this idea of freedom which brought millions of immigrants across the vast Atlantic Ocean in hope of starting their lives anew. It's hard to imagine how desperate some of these people must have been to abandon their homeland for some faraway place with a language and culture so different from their own. But such is the pulling power of America, the land of opportunity, with its promise of new beginnings and endless possibilities. At the start of the 20th century, it was a country open to all who dared to dream, a place which was built on the backs of immigrant labor and their desire to succeed. Ellis Island wasn't just a point of entry. It was a turning point for millions of lives and for the nation itself. What began as a processing station became a symbol of something much larger, the belief that from struggle can come opportunity, and from difference, strength.